welcome to the home of Merthyr Town FC. Welcome back to Just One Man podcast. We are very, very privileged this evening to be joined by these three gentlemen here, who are also sat here. We've got Matthew Harris, Will Fuller and Liam Angel with us. We're all players for Merthyr Town FC, the Mighty Martyrs. And they've decided to come on and have a chat about some bits and bobs with us. Just before we kick off, just like to give a thank you to our sponsors for this episode, which is Fort Tom and the PT Room. Fort Tom is a suicide prevention and postvention charity that offers free counselling for those struggling with suicidal thoughts, as well as free counselling and support groups for those who have been bereaved by suicide. Likewise, the PT Room is a small group personal training facility that's located up on the Pant Industrial Estate here in Merthyr Tydfil. The focus is on getting the best out of each member, both physically and mentally, in a supporting environment. Both of our sponsors, we're very, very grateful for you giving your support to us, and you can find out more about them via their social media channels, which we'll pop in the episode notes. So, lads, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for waiting for Jordan, the Tech King.
I thought you were going to say Josh then, because he was late.
Josh was late. Josh is always late. So,
It's hard.
anyway, where do we start, I suppose? As three males in a very male-dominated sport, for the most part, even though there have been huge strides forward in the women's game, what is the perception of mental health within not only, I suppose, football, but your changing room, but your locker room, Matthew? Not to drop it on you, but
Chuck him in at the end. Go on.
go on.
Obviously, I've been here 17, 18 years, so I've been in the dressing room environment for quite a while, and it's improved dramatically in that time, is the easiest way to put it, in the sense of, I'm going to touch on our dressing room, which I feel privileged to be a part of, because I'm sort of coming to the end of my playing days, but it's probably the best dressing room I've been in terms of the personality, despite them being, let's be fair, so young, other than Will, who is chasing me down. The rest are all mid-20s or below. Yeah. So it's a very young dressing room, very energetic and youthful dressing room. The music choice is shocking. But other than that, it's a good dressing room. But it's a weird one, because I don't know if it's a bloke thing or if it's a sport thing. It's a very safe environment, and no matter what goes on outside of the dressing room, you can park it and come into that dressing room and know you'll be fine. Yeah. Well, that's how I feel anyway. I want to speak for myself.
Behind the closed door.
Yeah, and it's a safe place. And look, that's created by the boys that are in the dressing room also. Do you know what I mean? Because there have been in the past some difficult characters, or but speaking on this dressing room in particular, and the staff even as well, you walk through those front doors downstairs, and it's a safe place. Where through stuff on a personal level, you can approach a teammate, you can approach a member of staff, and you always feel that you're gonna be heard. Yeah. Now, is it, looking back, was I too scared, too young to even bring up anything that I was going through? There's an element of that. Yeah. There's an element of the old cliche of that stigma attached to showing a sign of weakness. Yeah. Maybe, but there's been a lot of exposure recently, especially on the mental health, with open interviews like your Dele Allis and difficulties that these professional players that are, let's be fair, on a, much well-known names than like us three, but it's only a good thing. And I can only speak, like I said, for the dressing room that we're in, and oddly, I've never actually openly come to the table, but I generally do feel that even like in a situation like this, I feel I'm more than comfortable because I know it would be received well within that dressing room,
It's like when you when you've played a match, then half time comes, it's not going your way, and then you normally hear the commentators say, oh, they're gonna go into that dressing room now and something they're gonna have a bollocking or this, that, or it's going to be a stern talking to it and stuff like that from the manager's perspective. That's all fine. That's all to do with that particular game, that particular moment. But it's the walking into the changing rooms before the match started and leaving. It's kind of like, do you still go on about the game then, or do you kind of, once that game is over or before it started, do you kind of continue doing that kind of conversation then, or?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask, or maybe the right person to ask. I've always been very, very good at parking my football up and separating it from what I call real life. You know, as in whether we win or lose, I'm neither like too ecstatic and I'm bouncing around the house when I get home.
Yeah.
Like my wife, she supports me and loves and adores what I do, and she'll support me to the... She doesn't actually care about football. She don't care. She don't care, which I love, because I used last night, we lost to Chesham, getting at early hours in the morning. She doesn't even know how we've even got on. She didn't even ask. But as long as I'm home safe and I wake up and I'm fine, losing away at Chesham really doesn't matter, you know. And so I've always been quite good. The manager says his thing after a game. The boys will say their thing. You have a shower. Always respectful of reading the room, and you don't want to be laughing and joking if the result isn't there. But I'm very good at, once that's done, you're done then. It's time to move on. You've got to go home and go to work, some boys in the evening. You've got to go and play husband, play dad. You've got to go into the bar and be amongst the boys and the fans. So, like, I'm one of them. I don't know, I can't speak on behalf of the boys or other players, but I know some boys do carry negative results in it more than anything with them, like, you know.
It's important to, like, take your emotion out of it when you're reflecting on a game. So you have that safe environment, which is the changing room, and whatever gets said in there at half time or after a game kind of gets parked there. And then you go back to the game on a Tuesday night and you review it, but you review it with your emotions out of it. So you're kind of like reviewing it from a performance point of view, as opposed to I had an argument with him, I had a bust up with him, I didn't agree with what he said. It's sort of parked in that regard. And I think just touching on, like, your support network as well outside of that, and being able to change up from football to normal life per se, having people like girlfriends, wives, whoever, friends outside of football who understand that football does take up a lot of your time, because my missus knows you go right off a Saturday. If I'm away, you're out at 8, you're back home at 11 o'clock or wherever, or if I'm not, I work some weekends, so I'm 6 till 6, so Saturdays are a write-off unless it's the summer break.
Football or work is still a write-off.
But it's a write-off, so that is important, and you touched on that there, but it is important to have that safe space in the dressing room and know that whatever gets said in there stays in there, and you don't get murmurs outside the dressing room then, I've heard so-and-so aren't getting on, the manager isn't agreeing with him or whatever, because it kind of, you go down a dark hole then, I think, like, and you can sort of like get it led away from you. So it is important to just feel like you can express yourself within the change room and it just be parked.
When you say about that, and I'm going to come to you, Will, because of your position, because as someone who doesn't play, I know everyone knows I don't play, by the way. Yet. Yeah, right. Watch out, Math. I'm coming for your spot.
He's coming in, sir.
Coming. It's taken me a while.
Better than me at the moment.
But I think when you're a goalkeeper, is it slightly different? Because yes, there's a loss, but then I think sometimes, and maybe unfairly, you have that extra element of pressure because of your role or because of your position. Is it much the same for you where you're able just to say, well, we lost, that was that, or is it the case that it maybe takes a little longer?
I think it is, and I can only speak having been a goalkeeper since I was 7. Do you know what I mean? So I've never sat the other side and had the outfield experience, but for me it's an individual role within a team, and that carries its own pressures. I think what's been really important for me throughout my career is having the support away from football that we've touched on, but also within the dressing room from another goalkeeper or a goalkeeper coach. I'm really lucky to have that here. I've had spells at clubs where it hasn't felt like there's anyone else to be a sounding board. And you talked about the reflection and performance piece. You're trying to do that yourself and tackle that yourself whilst knowing you're the only person that's looking at it. and it doesn't matter what you say because others will hold a different opinion. And I think, picking up on what you said about separating the life and the football bit, that doesn't mean that we're not fully focused on that. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and the time.
It's still in your it's in the back of your head. It's just not fully focused on until you actually get there.
I think for me, it helps, and I wasn't always like that. I did carry the emotion of games and particularly mistakes, given the position, out into the rest of my evening on a Saturday, sometimes into the Sunday, and sometimes even longer than that.
Did sometimes you sort of blame yourself a couple of days after? It's still my fault, but in the changing room you say, yes, all right, I understand, but. And just say your piece in a change room, but still take it away from the change room with you just for a couple of days to...
Yeah, and I'll be the first to hold my hands up when I do make a mistake.
Yeah.
But I'd still carry that into, like I say, the rest of my week, and it would affect not just the rest of my time, but those around me. And, as I've got older, I've learned that that's not healthy. I don't want to be impacting my wife and friends and family and others with my mood based on 90 minutes of my week. There's a lot that goes into that 90 minutes. And there's a lot that goes into being as shit as we are sometimes, or as good as we are, as pretty much everybody on the terrace will remind you. But I don't want to let that affect the rest of my time. And I think some of that comes with age. And I think we've got a role as older players within the dressing room to try and help some of the younger lads understand that this is not, as much as we all dreamt of being a Premier League footballer sometime, for whatever reason, we're not. And it can't be everything that you are. You can't attach your entire identity to the piece of that Saturday,
I think people, and I've been here long, and look, I absolutely adore the fan base. It's an incredible fan base. I still find it mad how, I'm a sort of Liverpool fan. I see football as Champions League nights, FA Cup finals. I find it incredible how you get 700, 800, 1,000 people through the gate here in Merthyr, and you ask them, and 80% of them will say Merthyr is the team that they support. They won't watch Soccer Sunday or Super Sundays with the big boys. So we are, in their eyes, it sounds mad, but we are the Gerrards on the Harry Kanes and the Cristiano Ronaldos, because they don't watch. We are them, and we know people on a personal level involved in the club and who their week and their mood is dictated by our result on a Saturday afternoon. Now, we don't want to be sat here going, oh, it doesn't matter to us. It really does, and we understand and respect that pressure, and I'd like to think we embrace it, and we try our best. But people often lose touch as well, and this isn't a snipe at the supporters, but people often lose sight that we are just normal blokes, and we're more normal than your Cristiano Ronaldo. We have to get up to go to work in the morning. Believe me, we're having pasta and rice on our lunch breaks because we've got to get on a bus at 11 o'clock, at 2 o'clock yesterday, to get all the way up to Cheshire. And by the time we got to the ground, I'd been up for 12 hours because my little one had me up at 6 in the morning. And then maybe we don't perform, or I personally don't perform on the levels that I can. Fancy that and go, oh, game, it's all that. And I'm going, oh, cut us some slack, boys. It's quite hard, this and it's such a commitment.
It is a big commitment,
And we all, in fact, not that I ever was a professional footballer, but I reckon this sounds a lot easier for them boys that get pampered and the whole being and life revolves around a result on a Saturday afternoon, which comes with its own pressure.
It's a different life, isn't it? Completely.
But I can't imagine them.
Obviously, I suppose you lot do it out of the enjoyment of it as well as you just, obviously, with the amount of commitment you put in for work and playing football, the time you give to it, I think that's quite a lot to give up.
Well, even little things that just passed. I know, you ask all my family, Christmas Day is written off. I'll have Christmas dinner, I'll enjoy it, but there's not an ounce of booze that goes on with myself. Everyone's partying the night away in their house parties on a Christmas night, and I love Christmas more than anyone.
New Year's Eve as well.
New Year's Eve, all these big
holidays.
People get to enjoy with their families. We enjoy, don't get me wrong, but it's very disciplined, and we may train the day before Christmas Eve. There's a lot of unseen things at our level.
Behind the scenes,
we really do have to apply ourselves properly. And
I think it's that old adage, isn't it, that you can have fun, you just can't have too much fun. Or you have fun, but you have fun after you
at the right times, isn't it?
Which is an ask. It is difficult.
It is a privilege as well, though.
Yeah,
definitely.
With some of the experiences that I've shared here at this club and at other clubs, not many people get.
No.
And when we sit around a table in 30, 40, 50 years time and we look back, it will have been a privilege to have had to make those sacrifices. If we didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And there's moments that I look back on already since coming to the club and you think that's incredible. Like there's such a small percentage of the population get to feel what we feel.
Yeah.
You walk around sometimes after a good win at home and there's smiling faces and they're clapping.
It's a buzz, yeah.
And it's brilliant. No, and it makes that sacrifice worth it. But it's also not just our sacrifice, because you're talking about Christmas Day and you're talking about New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. Sorry,
People come to watch, aren't they?
Well, but also the people around us, our families, make sacrifices, because I'm not as fun to be around on Christmas Day, and I'm a boring bloke on New Year's Eve because we've got Hungerford away on the first. Do you know what I mean? So it's a shared sacrifice for a few really, really meaningful moments.
Yeah.
But it is an absolute privilege at the same time.
I think you use it as an out as well. Football is definitely an out. And I think I can change myself. Like, and people around me notice it when, you're not playing or you're injured, or even little things like I haven't been to the gym or I haven't gone out and whatever to walk the dogs. You people around you saying, you're getting a bit ratty, go to the gym, or wherever it might be, And I've been lucky enough, really, and I think I can just echo what you've said. It's a great change room here now, and you hear some absolute horror stories from years gone by and wherever. But I think I've always been lucky to be involved in good dressing rooms and have people. They say there's no friends in football, but I think I can sit here and honestly say there's people I've met through the sport that will be at my wedding day, and that is just I can't speak highly enough of the people I've played with and been involved with. It's amazing, really. Like the feeling.
Do you feel like the younger boys sort of look up to you a little bit more?
I probably can't answer that. I don't know.
Great question for me, is it?
I'll answer it for you.
No, I'm joking.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. What he's achieved is phenomenal. And I think now,
Sorry, his head just hit me.
And it is to play at this level for so long and to put all the mileage that you have done to come back from setbacks as well with your injuries and whatever else, and keep going and keep chugging along, and to do it in one place, because let's be real, mate, you've had offers that you could have gone and got more money elsewhere, and you could have gone and got XYZ. No, but on a real, to play at this level for the duration that you have and the longevity of it, and to the level that you're still playing now. I remember we had a conversation last year and you were kind of like, Angel, how do I look? Do I look all right? And I was like, mate, honestly, you look unreal. You're playing so well, you look fit, you look good. And you'll always be honest with you and you'll tell me if I look shit. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I would, to be fair, because I'd expect the same back. Yeah. But no, it's phenomenal, and I think I can only aspire really to play at the level for as long as you've done it. And I suppose it takes so much commitment outside of football as well, as we spoke about prior, your family and your missus and everyone else, your friends, you're missing parties, you miss birthdays, whatever it is. But it's unthinkable. I think 400 games at this level is crazy.
Well, I didn't expect it to become the Merthyr Appreciation Podcast. I told you that earlier on.
I sure would want to say something.
I genuinely, I mean, without making this an absolute loving, because
I didn't think our first tears on the podcast would be.
Because and I mean this with the utmost respect, I can apply this to several blokes I've come across in the game. For me, take away the performance on the pitch and the amount of games and that, it's about the way people hold themselves. That's what gains my respect, and that can apply from a 19-year-old who's just entered but does all the right things and wants to learn, all the way up to a 59-year-old who's still going. And like I say, there's been plenty of different clubs that I apply that to, but for me it's more about how you handle yourself and the way that you interact with the lads, not just in a physical sense but even in the group and things like that. So
father figure.
Yeah, and I'm glad there is someone still here older than me.
Right, now what do you think of these two?
Amazing. Just good solid blokes. No, I've been one always, and I've been quite consistent with this for a long time. My grandfather was my hero growing up, and never got to see him play football, but apparently he was quite good at football. Never ever saw it, so he could have been, he couldn't. But the one thing that I always thought was the best thing about my grandfather was that no one ever had a bad word to say about him. Whatever walk of life you met my grandfather, at his funeral was like, it was mad the amount of people that were there. And I always worshipped my grandfather in the way that, as we'll touch on, he conducted himself. He was just this lovely, lovely bloke. And now that I've got Isabel and my little one, I just forget the footballer. And, you know, we talked off camera about a tag that comes with you, like Matt the footballer or Angel the footballer, Will the footballer. I just want to, in 30 years' time, if Isabel's walking around the town and someone goes, oh, is Isabel Harris, or what's your dad, or is he the and I don't care about that. It's, no, your old man's a lovely bloke. That means way more to me than ever playing 400 games of football, playing in the Premier League, playing in whatever it was. That means, so I do pride myself on, and that comes from my grandfather, just carry yourself properly. Just say your please and your thank yous. Yeah, exactly. Just when someone wants to speak to you, give them that time of the day. Yeah. And I don't know, I like to think I'm fairly consistent with it. And that comes from my grandfather, and that's a massive trait from my grandfather that I got, was he was the nicest bloke you'd ever meet. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying I can ever be that, but to hear people say that I'm a good guy means way more to me than someone saying he was a cracking footballer. That's what means more to me, like, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, and obviously, we've been friends for over 20 years. I was privileged to have known Di.
Yeah.
Hands like shovels and a heart just as big. But it's that's the other side of it, I suppose, is you talk about being professional and having to have your game face on, and this kind of level, this kind of performance level that you've always got to kind of be ready to be hitting, whilst all this personal stuff is going on in the background. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Obviously, last year you lost your dad, and I know it was huge. It was a huge thing for you, but yet you still continued to be Matthew the footballer at the same time. But how do you do that? How do you manage grief like that?
I don't really know. I mean, I take comfort that the football was me and my father's thing. So to paint the picture, we played Hayes the last game of the season last year, and my dad, the family was called in on the Friday, so the night before the game, my older brother had come down from the Midlands, and we'd gone to the hospital, and he was unconscious, and he was in a bad way, and we knew there was no return. And I made a choice that night that I was not going to go back to see my dad. I did it with my grandfather, and I seen him deteriorate to a point where I was like, that's not my grandfather on the bed. And it was the worst thing I ever done. Oddly, I'm glad I seen him, but it was like that picture of him on the bed is what still,
So even though you've known him all your life, that's not last.
I felt awful leaving the hospital, and I said to my brother, I don't think I want to come back. And I thought I was going to get pelted. And look, my stepmother and my older brother was just like, no, you've got to do you now. These are moments where you've got to handle it in the way that you want to handle it. So I made the decision not to go back. But we had a game the next day. And look, the phone call could have gone when I was playing. And Paul rang me, and he knew what was going on. Paul, obviously being the manager, and he said, look, what do you want to do? And I sort of knew that football was my dad. My dad wouldn't have it any other way of me sat in that house, moping around it. It was literally, it was not an option for me. It was no, dad would want me to play. So I played, and knowing that, you know, wherever he might be, he was gone at that point in my head, and that's what he wanted me to do. So I felt obliged to do that. Played the game lasted, and what was mad is I ended up in the Vulcan that night, which is bonkers, right?
Who doesn't want to end up in the Vulcan, eh?
I ended up in the Vulcan with my brother. It was actually an amazing night, because we were just together as brothers, and it was an amazing night. And woke up on the Sunday, and then the news came on the Sunday that he'd passed away. But in terms of dealing with it, I don't know. It's still oddly, here we are now, 9-10 months on, and it still doesn't feel real. I'm still incredibly bitter, which it's an odd one to describe because I feel he was taken too soon, and I'm still playing. And obviously I came back this year purely on the reason that my dad said, get the 400 games, don't stop now, you're capable of it, don't stop. I was going to knock football on the head last year, not because Dad was ill, but just emotionally, physically didn't feel like I could go again. Whether that him passing just gave me that fire in the belly to come back and give it a right good go for that reason. I'm devastated he isn't around to see me hit the milestone. Absolutely gutted, but I'm sure wherever he is, he's slagging me off to my face. But somewhere, he's telling someone that he's chuffed to bits. But yeah, it's a weird one because it's a special year, oddly, because I sort of, obviously Adam left the club and I was made captain, so he never got to see that. So I know all these little things would have meant the world to Dad. So it's a bit of bittersweet really. But I'm incredibly bitter because, Dad was early 60s, and I was really looking forward to retiring and then going to watch games with Dad and having that son-dad experience that we can hammer other people from the terraces that in a way that he would have hammered, and having that. And look, Dad's, he had his battle, and he ultimately it got the better of him in the end. It was cancer, and it's devastating, and I'm still not over it now, if truth be told. I still have moments, and in terms of what I deal with it, I've got an incredibly supportive family that have also experienced devastating loss, and they've been incredible. But I'm very much not a one-man band, but I'm quite self-sufficient in the sense of Mark obviously knows me incredibly well. I'm all right on my own.
Like
If
your
that-
own company.
Yeah, and I spend a lot of time on my own in the nature of the work that I am. I spend a lot of time on the road on my own.
Yeah.
Now, some people may not like that. I actually love that hour or 2 hour drive of chucking a podcast on, playing Celine Dion or playing some dodgy music in the car. That I love all that.
Yeah.
And look, I'll openly admit, I still bawl my eyes out. It could be something that sets me off, and I'll just
little thing and
I'll have a ball driving in the car for 20 minutes, and I'll park up outside the house for 5 minutes and just relax, compose myself, and I'm like, yeah, I'm alright. And I still have these moments and wobbles now. Even after I had the presentation last week with the frames, was absolutely brilliant all day. Got home, don't get me wrong, I was a little bit tipsy, but I've got home and I've just had an absolute ball up in the bathroom, because it's like, I just wish I could just text him at least, do you know what I mean?
And saying that, it's like, I'm guessing, so obviously you and your father were like, obviously football.
Yeah.
I bet when you played away games and stuff, and then you couldn't come to them, you had your kind of rituals then of like, get in the car or get on the bus, just before you get on the bus, give him a call, say how it was.
Yeah.
Text, wasn't it?
It was religiously had to be a text,
okay.
and then he'd call,
Yeah.
and it would often be, Dad, the bus is bouncing, or the bus is thing, I'll ring you when I get off the other end. And then I wouldn't ring, or we wouldn't ring, and then we'd catch up the next day. That was literally how it was every Saturday. Look, my mother and father split up years ago, and was mine and my father's relationship always perfect? No. But it was a consistent relationship in the sense of sport would always be that. Even though I thought he was a dickhead at times, you'd be that constant feel the need. I let Dad know how I've got on today, and then that would always be, you would know, how are you doing, Dad, or how's your illness, Dad? It was always, we lost 3-0 today. Well, that's not good, but it was always that. And that was me and my father, and I'm gonna miss it for the rest of my life, that constant interaction and that, like you said. And look, I never lead on about like my playing stuff and stuff. I like to think I'm fairly humble, but I'm incredibly proud to be captain, and hit the 400. And I don't tell people that. There's something I would have told my father. I said, Dad, I'm chuffed to bits. I didn't openly show emotion to my father, but I ran a London Marathon 2 years ago. Massive thing on my bucket list. Got onto the mile. First person I think to ring is my father. So I've got photos of me running down the mile on the phone to my dad. Why, I don't know. Just sharing a milestone and sharing an achievement is something that you want to show off to your dad. I don't know. And look,
Well, he was with you when you crossed the line. Technically, he was on the phone.
He was,
he was on the phone with you.
Yeah, he was. But in terms of am I coping? Yeah, I'm coping. I'm fine in myself. I know I'm okay, but I still have big wobbles, and you know I'm pretty good at having a bit of context to it. It's still fresh. It's still raw.
Yeah,
it'll probably always still be raw. It's your dad at the end of the day. But yeah, no, I mean, I have crap days. I have crap, not days, I'd say I have an hour where something might trigger it. But I'm quite good at just going on a drive or getting my head speed. I'm better on my... I'll let the boys speak because I don't want us to be all be about me, obviously. But perhaps I'm saying this, perhaps other people will relate. I put pressure on myself, as in, like, when I have a crap day or a crap hour, I'll sort myself out, because when I walk through the front door of the house, I, in my head, want to be the best husband, the best dad, the best brother, the best teammate, and I also know that those are going through stuff as well. And I feel like I don't want to come through that door and go, oh, by the way, get on this. Bump, and then just spill my heart out and just have it, because I just think, well, no, they got their stuff going on. So I don't know if I'm thinking, no, I need to be a dad and the better husband, and I'd be there listening to Kirsty all day with her problems, and she'll tell me, she shouts at me, no, you need to talk to me as well, Matt. But no, it's fine, because I'll deal with my stuff in the car on my own.
Have a little reboot in the car.
Yeah, and press the reset and breathe, count to 10, and then boom, I'll go in and I'm Matthew, the dad and husband. And
Everyone's different, isn't he? So that might work for you, but then it might not work for other people. Which I think is great, really. That you know when you need to have a reset, jump in a car, off you go, and it's done.
Is that something that you two can relate to at all? That kind of having to take yourself out of a situation, whether it's how you feel, or if you've had loss or grief or that, and you know, I'll deal with it on my own first, and then I'll worry about everything else.
I can't really speak from a grief point of view because I haven't really lost anyone. My one set of grandparents passed away before I was born. The other is still alive and awesome as ever, crack me up all the time. But I have a similar relationship with my father, where my mum and dad also split up, and I speak to my father about football all the time. And that's our thing, like. But I do think it is important, like you just touched on there, about having like an out. So yours might be in the car with a podcast. Mine's going down the beach and having a walk with my dogs. Going to the gym, having a blast, coming to football, whatever it might be. And I think you're very lucky as well, as am I, to just enjoy my own company. Because I think people do rely on others, and being in other people's company a lot nowadays, or being on the phone to someone constantly, or like it's okay to be just at one with your own thoughts kind of thing. But yeah, I haven't got no grief, as I said, but yeah.
I think that's something I'm probably trying to work on a little bit, in truth, is speaking more openly, particularly with Alice, my wife. You know, she's amazing. She's doing a counselling course and you know, looking into all the science behind it, the neuroscience, and she comes home sometimes and talks about things like the vagal nerve connecting your gut to your brain, and I'm sat there, but I'm learning all this amazing stuff to the point where I'm thinking, actually, yeah, I probably do need to talk a little bit more. Do you know what I mean? I'm very similar to you, and I think potentially some of that is around, you know, I left home at 15 to carry on trying to chase the football dream, so I had to be pretty self-sufficient from just before my 16th birthday. So I think I've always been the same. I deal with things myself and I look after myself, and that can be a little bit selfish at times. But I think that's how I internalise problems and deal with them, either in my own head or in my own space, both physically and metaphorically. But I do think, and we talk about this, I think there's probably real value for me in finding time to talk really openly and honestly about how things have affected me emotionally with Alice. I mean, I lost my grandfather was the first, and I've recently lost my nan on the other side. I lost him on the morning of the Salisbury game last year. And similar, I knew full well that there was no way he would have wanted me not to play that game.
No.
And I don't actually think I spoke about it even in the aftermath of the game. I don't actually think I let on that it even happened. And it was a weird one because I'd had the phone call and he was 95, an amazing bloke, always had this twinkle in his eye, and he was just a brilliant human. But I had the phone call at 6 that morning, and he was finally at peace because he was having his own battles. And then I knew, I was thinking about the day ahead. Do I go into work? Yes, because actually I probably want to busy myself and stay in what I'm doing. And then do I want to play the game? Yeah, absolutely. There's no way you would not have wanted me to play that game.
No.
And it was one of the strangest, most calm performances I think I've put in for the club. And the only thing that ruined it was a crap handball decision. We didn't get a clean sheet to sort of honour his memory in a weird kind of way. But I think I'm exactly the same. I internalise a lot of things, and whether it's in the moment or whether I sort of, I know the phrase "bottle it up" comes with some negative connotations, but actually I think for me it's about sectioning it off a little bit from what I'm doing in the here and now, because there's I've got to go to work and I've got to play that game. I think what I then do is at the time that is right for me, and it might just be happening, like you say, as we're behind the wheel travelling to or from training, or a piece of music comes on that reminds me of him, or even just something happens, and I usually find it something stupid. Like I would have loved to told him about Alice's new job, or particularly the wedding, obviously, and usually it's about other people telling him other things that other people have done. That's when it hits me, and that's when I sort of like deal with it, I think. But for me, I think I sort of I'll call it bottle it up, but I think actually in quite a healthy way, so that I can deal with it when I'm ready. But I do think there's work for me to do in terms of really talking openly about my emotions with others.
It's interesting that you say that. We had a question from our last guest, Ellie Johnson, of Forever Friends Pontypridd, and she asked whether you feel as though you can talk to one another, or if it's the case that you feel like it is a struggle opening up. And I suppose the question originally may have been answered somewhat earlier when you said about kind of the dressing room, being able to, there's always that kind of hand on the shoulder, if you need me, I'm here type thing. But I think that's interesting that you say that you feel you need to work on opening up. What is it, do you think, maybe to kind of hijack Ellie's question somewhat and slightly change it? What do you think is the struggle with opening up? What do you think's kind of what's holding you back, maybe?
I'm quite an emotional bloke anyway, so I'm not by any means saying I'm a closed book and I don't talk about these things. I think there's layers to unpicking certain things, or talking really openly and honestly about something, how it's affecting you. And I think we've got a dressing room that I think I could go in and it's weird, isn't it? A bunch of blokes, but I sometimes find the shower the most comforting time to talk to each other in a strange kind of way, and we have the chats then. But I think there's layers to it, and I'd be really comfortable drilling pretty deep. I think there's additional layers then that you probably only chat to really, really trusted loved ones. Do you know what I mean, about how you're feeling about certain things and how things are affecting you. But I'd like to think, as we sort of said at the start, that we've created a dressing room atmosphere where if someone wanted to come in and really sit down and talk about things, they absolutely could. I think that comes over time, building trust with people, building like rapport and relationships, and getting to know people on a personal level. And we've got loads of opportunities to do that, the amount of bus journeys that we have together and the time that we spend together during a week. But I think things like this have an opportunity to just talk really frankly and honestly. You've spoken really candidly about relationship with your old man tonight, and we've touched on that on different away trips and things, but I've heard it in probably another layer of depth tonight. So creating creating space for it and time for it. We talked a little bit on the drive home last night about how busy we all are, and how often do we, particularly as blokes, but actually at all as a society, stop.
Yeah.
When do we really stop to think and really stop to like consider what's happening in our lives on a sort of a, without getting all deep and spiritual, on a deep level? Do you know what I mean? When do we pause? And it's usually holidays and things like that, or key milestone moments. So
talking about keeping busy and kind of going back to, obviously you mentioned, because you've done the London Marathon, you've ticked that off the bucket list. You've decided to be a bit crazy and run an obscene distance for this year's London Marathon, and you're doing it for Big Moose, I believe.
Yeah, an incredible mental health charity who do like genuinely life-saving work. Cardiff-based, run by a father and daughter, and they can evidence that they improve lives, and that's kind of why I've chosen to use them as the vehicle for the fundraising challenge. And the marathon was never on my radar. I applied, I think, on the last day of the ballot because it popped up on my Twitter. And I've tried to avoid as much running as possible over the length of my career by playing in goal. Do you know what I mean? So I think that was a conscious decision when I was young. So yeah, that's it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the training. Yeah, and
I never done it. Well, I never liked running. I hated it as a younger. It's like, nah, no running. And it was like, right, I'm doing a tough man, I better start running. And then you just get the bug for it, and
yeah, I mean, time will tell whether I get the bug for it, but I'm enjoying it at the minute. And there's the motivating factor for me is this fundraising challenge for Big Moose, and knowing that if I can hit the target by the end of December that I've set, that 37 people will go through a course of their therapy, and it's no barrier entry.
And what is the target, Bill?
£15,000.
Okay.
Which is huge, and I know it's going to be more than the marathon. I'm already looking at other things that we
So get donated.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm looking into the mic.
No, look at the mic. Yeah.
The link will be in the
pop
bottom.
up.
Yes.
That's what they do on
Yeah,
podcasts.
but we will put the Big Moose link into stuff as well to try and help that along, because as you said, it really is life saving work. It's not just life changing; it's life saving. Which is incredible, and I'm sure that you will
a bit Bob Geldof there, didn't you? On live,
You did.
We need your money.
Yeah,
But
It worked for him, didn't it?
it did work.
the question is, who's going to have the fastest marathon time?
Will, if he keeps moving. Thing is, I got pulled over by Anthony Joshua. He wanted a photo with me,
This is true.
so he sort of
We'll
took up
get
my
the
time for a
photo.
while.
We'll get the photo up.
We'll drop the photo in.
So yeah, he took up a lot of my time, but
I had got married on the Saturday, on the 1st of October, and the marathon was on the Sunday, the 2nd. So you stayed until about 5-6 o'clock, and then you
had the 3-course meal.
and then a free course meal.
They're just trying to and just give it a
And then went, and I remember the day after the wedding, when I'm sat there going through wedding cards and eating copious amounts of cake that's left over, and buffet food and all the rest of it. And in our WhatsApp group, everyone is keeping up to date with how he's getting off. And your dad was on Twitter, because he only ever used Twitter for football and to retweet things about you playing. But he was doing it like this live commentary of the London Marathon. And I remember just you finishing, and everyone texts, "Oh, well done, brilliant." And the first thing that he replies is just a selfie of him and Anthony Joshua. And I was like, that is the most Matthew Harris thing ever. I suppose my next question is going to come your way, actually. And it's about coping with being let go. And I know that it's something that you feel quite strongly about, in that there's not enough support for football and sports people in general who are put in academies and who are put in well-known teams, and they are kind of protected almost in a bubble, and then all of a sudden someone bursts that bubble and say, right, you aren't up here anymore, you go in, back down. How does that happen for starters? How do you even begin, I suppose, to start processing that change?
It is massive, and I think whether you get released at a young age from like an academy or a young pro, or on the other end of the spectrum, an experienced guy who's so used to 5 or 6 days of his life turning up to a changing room full of blokes, having a banter, whatever else, to then go to nothing. And you don't know what people's support networks are like. So like we're obviously lucky, like we've all spoke about it tonight. We've got amazing girlfriends, wives, you know, families. My mother's amazing. I've got all my family's amazing, you know, support network. But for people that haven't, going from full-time football to what am I doing tomorrow? Big change, massive change, mate. And I was like, at one point, I was kind of like, I don't even know if I want to play anymore. And like, how sad is that for like a 19-year-old, like, you know, still boy really, to say, I've loved this game since I was a kid. Like, I've always had a football on my feet, you know, broke my leg trying to jump on a football, watching an advert of Ronaldinho, which we were that last night. Like, how did you go from enjoying the game so much and doing it every day as a job to having nothing and not knowing where you're going next? You've got no job, limited qualifications because you've gone to school 3 times a week. You played football the other 2. All right, you've still got to take your schoolwork to, you know, your Cardiff City or Swansea City or Newport, wherever you are, in South Wales, anywhere, wherever you are, whatever club you're at. You've got school 3 days a week. You finish school, you do a schoolboy or an apprenticeship or whatever, scholarship, where you do 1 day of education, so you're getting a BTEC level 3 in sport, which is great, you got your qualification, but it may not be something that later on in life you turn out to even use. Like I work on a chemical plant now. I would never use that qualification ever again, you know? Yeah. And I just think there's no real like support outside of full-time football for people who do struggle. And you see a lot of stories now about guys that, we just said earlier on, that winning feeling. You can't describe to someone that doesn't play football what it feels like to win. That adrenaline rush you get, that buzz you get. Yeah. So I can't imagine if you were a pro for 20 years and you go to nothing, because you're not getting that same buzz out of, you know, going shopping to IKEA on a Saturday or wherever you may do. And I don't think there's enough support around it to see these people when they come out the game. Yeah. And you see people then, yeah, literally, like even if it's like an event where you get together, or you know, you meet up with ex-pros or people who have come out the game once every so often. I think something like that would be great. Or better education around making sure your education is looked after, if that makes sense. Like I was lucky, my literally, that my grandparents and my parents were always like, no, you do your schoolwork. Whereas other people were like, oh, I'm going to be a pro footballer. And the likelihood of that happening is slim to none, like, you know, and the sooner you understand that, the better. And you can't really give up a dream, obviously, but is having something to fall back on.
How can it happen? How can you go through, like, doing that sort of, I'm going to be a professional footballer as a job, and then all of a sudden, that balloon's popped? How does that kind of happen?
There's so many layers to football, isn't it? Right? And it's like your performance on the pitch being one of them. But then there's circumstances outside of that. There's like politics in football. Right. There's different managers that come in, different ways of playing. You might be one manager's cup of tea, you might not be the next manager's cup of tea. Right, okay. They might sign someone who's a more experienced player than you and they want him to come in. Right. If you're an older guy, it might be the opposite way around. They've signed this young lad who's coming in and he's playing now because we're going to get 5 years out of him. You've got 5 months left or whatever. Right, okay. And in the lower leagues, you're always sort of playing for a year or 2 year deals, if that makes sense. Yeah. So nothing's ever really that secure. Okay. So in the conference, the next sort of thing. Yeah. And you know, you say now you do your ACL, right? You've obviously done that. It's 18 months, a year, 18 months, is it? Like if you're on a 2 year deal, you're not playing football. You're playing football for 6 months. Like how can you make an impression in 6 months at a full-time football club? Been there for the 2 years fully, you know. And you come out of that, and it's kind of like, where on earth am I going now? As a 19-year-old boy,
you feel lost in the middle of...
Feel lost. Yeah. And you turn up to... I was lucky, really. My first men's club was, obviously, Newport County or wherever. but I was involved in the first team there. But then my first men's club was with Paul, and it was a good group of lads that were there. But you do turn up with this sort of like bravado of like, oh, I've been a pro footballer, not realising that probably 75% of the team have as well. You know, and you think, oh, I'm just going to turn up and stroll it at this level, like. And the reality is, you really don't, like. You really don't.
There does need some more support out there for, you know, like a safety net of, right, I'm back in the real world now, and
Even if there was something in like colleges or something for, you know, they set something up in colleges or, you know, everywhere.
You know,
just
well, I think
for-
we've all been even the non-players. Everyone on the table have been there where you've been at a game, and maybe it's a Welsh League game or even a kind of a pub league game, and you see a boy who is obviously head and shoulders above everyone else, and then it comes to light, oh, they used to play for Cardiff, or they used to play for Newport, and you think, well, how were they here then? And they're getting kicked the shit out of on awful pitches against men who are smoking 20 fags and having, you know, 5 cans before they go on the pitch. And it you know, you see that fall from grace. But I suppose, as you said, you know, you don't hear about how they are handling it. No. You just think, oh well, they still playing, they still turning up on Saturday, but you don't think, yeah, but imagine how that's made them feel. You know, like, you know, you obviously played for Swansea for years with the academy, and then you got let go. All right, you were a little bit older, but you went from kind of the, I suppose, the prestige of Swansea to then get in
the reality of football. And I
shit
got released at
kicked into it.
16, and we've all got very similar stories, and you speak to probably 99% of footballers, they've all got very similar stories. I played against Bournemouth on the Sunday for Swansea, and the following Saturday I'm playing against Pentrabar Country Irish Park for a Merthyr League club, the Western. In that week I've got released. In that week was the same emotion that Angel said, that what's the point? I felt like I deserved a contract. I didn't get it. People are out to get me. It's all politics. There's all these different reasons why you start. Why you'd think, my face not fit. There's not funding, whatever it might be. And my uncle Joey just said, "Well, just come and have a kick about with the boys." And that is literally, in its simplest form, what it was. It was Merthyr League football. So you go and play on these carpets at Bournemouth on one Saturday afternoon, and literally fast forward 7 days,
Sunday league pitch.
you're playing on a pitch with boys called Fishy and Mackay, do you know what I mean? And 40-year-old blokes who meet,
Smoking
you go
as they walk in on the
kick-offs
pitch.
at 2, and everyone just says make sure you're on the pitch at 10 to 2 in time for kick-off, where you're so used to
Mix and match.
like hour and a half before. So and look, I say fortunate, I always had my friendship circle, my family circle was always very quick to bring me back down to real world, really, as we keep referring to. So I never ever, I was devastated I never got it, but I also was then lucky that no, the right thing for me now is A-levels at school, and then I want to go into university. So I was switched on in that sense, and always had that behind me of no, make sure your schoolwork's done. It may not happen. I had that, which I'm very fortunate for. Like, I only speak, I won't drop names, but there's boys downstairs who've recently, a year ago, they were in the Carabao Cup playing professional football matches, and last night they're going away to Chesham, sat 6 hours, 10 hours on a bus. They got to get up tomorrow, get on the site. It's like whack,
Big
slap of like, whoa. And, you know, they're good enough boys and they're switched on enough that, you know, they'll find their way and they'll be fine. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure I'll speak openly here that, not that I've ever said it to them, but they can lean on boys who've gone through something similar, and we come out the other side, that they can come to us and speak to us, like, you know. But it's a mad industry, and I'm sure it's ridiculous. And not just it's insane. Even
You don't see the behind the scenes part. You just see
You see that 90
you see
minutes.
the glory part of it and the pictures, and that's it. You don't see the actual closed
and
doors.
even at Merthyr's level, like, there's no like contracts and stuff. So yeah, you might get a few that might get on contracts, the youngsters, or maybe the club might say there's a potential pro club looking at him, we can make some money, because ultimately it's a business and we get all that. But I look at myself, I'm 34, 35, 34, 35, definitely 35. And I'm not on a contract. So if I was to like injure myself on Saturday, don't get a penny, nothing. So I'm not saying that's criticism, but that's the reality of non-league football. That's across, that's a blanket across non-league football. So that is the harsh reality. So you've got lads that, you know, we can't speak fairy tale Disney World like your Man Cities of this world, you know, on 200-300 grand a week. Even the boys currently playing in League 1, League 2 football, when their time is up in 10, 15 years, they'll have to go into a line of work because they'll earn nice money, but it'll never be enough to see them through. They'll have to adjust somehow and find what we call a real job. Like, you know,
It is as well, being able to adjust, like you just said, after, like, well, say you go in at 18, you're very lucky, 36, 18 years career, being in a male environment, having that thing. And I think the stigma around the game now is sort of going. It really is. But if you've been aligned with that and you're a bit more old school as well, and there was that stigma around not talking or not having your say, or, you know, not being able to come out front with people, because I think it is going, as you know, as we're moving on, it really is. And like we said, we're lucky. It must be so tough. And you see these guys then turn into all sorts of stuff, like, you know, after football. And all you can see him for is the footballer. You don't see him as, like you said earlier on, the father, the brother, the son, you know, whatever you are.
I suppose then, if you could give, and I'm looking at you, but I'm going to start with you.
Start at all end.
To give you a bit of time to think, what would your one bit of advice be to a new player that was coming into your dressing room? If you had to try and give them some sort of advice, whether it was around mental health or around how to carry themselves or whatever, or the food, you know, what would that bit of advice be?
One bit of advice. As cliche as it sounds, just enjoy the ride, like, because you never get these years back, like. And I'll keep it short and sweet, but my stepfather played rugby at a pretty decent level and had to finish early for external circumstances. He's in his late 50s now, and he would love nothing more than to put a kit on and run out in a rugby field and get absolutely trampled all over for 80 minutes again. So, yeah, enjoy the ride and just be respectful to people and respect yourself, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, I'd just say just be a decent bloke. To your point, I'd much rather be remembered as a decent bloke and a shit keeper than a class keeper but an absolute arse. So just be a decent human being.
and probably I was just going to say, just be yourself.
Unless you're an arsehole.
And yeah,
Unless you're not.
Unless you're a dickhead.
That is key.
no,
that
but
is.
I don't think everyone's an arse. I think a lot of
Because if
it's
you
all-
are an arsehole, there's no place for you. In this changing room or any changing room.
I just think, like, you hear of, you know, the Billy Big Bollocks, big timers is the term thrown around in football. If the culture and the environment is right, even if the biggest of big times come into our dressing room, it wouldn't last.
Yeah.
Not saying I'm this boisterous and rip them to shreds, but just the type of people that we are in there just wouldn't put up with it, and they'd soon start flash. They'd come in with the big Louis Vuittons. They'd soon start walking in with an Asda wash bag in 3 weeks because they think this isn't impressing anyone.
Yeah.
No, it's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just be you. I just think the bravados, the people come in, the egos, just leave them at the door. But you might have a glowing CV. I'm not impressed. Well done to you, but you're with us now, mate. You're one of us. So just be yourself, and like you said, just try and be a good bloke. That's or lady.
Or
But no,
however
just
you
Whatever you
identify.
want to be.
Yeah, just be a good person. Just carry yourself properly. Especially at Merthyr, I'd like to think as a group and as a club we try to carry ourselves properly, whether we're at home or away. I think the boys are very respectful of dressing rooms, food after matches, where we are downstairs. I just think, you know,
representing that.
Yeah, and I think, look, are we going to win the league? We're going to give it a good go. Are we going to win the Champions League? No, we're not in it. But for what we are, I think we're a good group. We're a likeable group, and we're a group that fans and non-footballing supporters can get behind, and we're just normal, decent blokes. Whether you're the 16-year-old Will who helps with you now, one of the youngsters, or you're the old bloke 35 like me. I just think everyone in that dressing room is just a good guy. So just be yourself.
Nicely put, Matt. Nicely put. Yeah, I just want to say again, thank you very much, boys, for joining us. It has been a pleasure, and we really appreciate as well your openness and your honesty as well. I'm sure that it'll touch a lot of people. To see that you are, as you said, you're just normal people behind the 90 minutes on a match day when people can pay £12 on the gate to come and call you all sorts.
And they do.
And they most definitely do. That you are all humans and you've got your stories, so we do appreciate it. Again, like to thank For Tom and the PT Room for sponsoring this episode. Our next guest is Liam Reedon. Oof, no, he's not. You're not really, unless you want to be. In which case, text him. Yeah. Okay.
Just want to say, if you could give us a subscribe on YouTube, follow our Instagram and our Facebook channels as well. It means it goes a long way for you to be following us. Keep up the good work, I suppose, and
See you on the next one.
see you
Like
next time.
and subscribe.
So see you after.
Bye.